Please don't poop on my desk. Okay. Every day we help people identify snakes. And one question we get all the time, they'll send us a picture of a water snake and want to know, is this a copperhead? Well, we're going to take a close look, a really close look at water snakes and copperheads. The copperhead that you encounter may not necessarily look like the copperhead you look up on the internet, okay? So we're going to look at a few different ones. But before we do that, I wanted to show you this. This was given to me many, many years ago, and it's actually pretty cool. These are real snake heads in here that are like taxidermied. I'm assuming this is like some formaldehyde or something in here. But if you look really close, now this is not a copperhead on the left, on your left here. This is a relative of the copperhead. This is the cottonmouth. And then this one over to your right, this is a non-venomous water snake. And it's just showing the differences, the head shape and some differences, the markings on these two snakes. But one thing I really want you to notice, and this is what makes identifying a water snake probably the easiest way to identify a water snake quickly, is when you look at the head. And I don't mean a triangular shaped head, okay, because most snakes can flatten their head out when they get scared into that triangular or diamond shaped head. And they do that in order to look bigger and to look dangerous. So just because a snake has a diamond or triangular shaped head does not mean it's a venomous snake, okay? Now, if you look at this snake here, this non-venomous water snake, if you look at the scales going along his top lip, those are his upper labial scales. And the ones at the bottom are the lower labial scales. But those scales, you'll notice, have vertical stripes going up and down those scales. And cottonmouths, copperheads, they don't have that. So in water snakes, it's very, very prominent. And in between each of those scales is that stripe, that line. So that's a really easy way, quickly, if you can see his head, to identify a water snake, even if you can't see his pattern. Maybe he's underwater and just has his head sticking up, and that's kind of all you can see. That's a really easy way to identify a water snake versus a copperhead. All right, so I want to get this part over with as quickly as possible. It is time to get out the water snake. Now, this is a water snake that I caught. It is not friendly. It does not like me at all. So let's get this part over with. So this is our non-venomous water snake. And it's already flattening its head out, trying to make it look like a triangular shape. So it's supposed to scare me off, maybe look like a venomous snake. But so this snake, people have really difficulties identifying snakes like this water snake. Now, this particular snake is known as a northern water snake. Okay, this is a northern water snake. If I were to look at the range of the northern water snake and where northern water snakes are supposed to live, well, if I was basing my identification just on that, then this would not be a northern water snake. This would be a midland water snake, because where this northern water snake was captured was not in the range, according to the book, of where northern water snakes live. It was supposed to be a midland water snake according to the range map. But when you look closely at the pattern on the snake and you look closely at the belly of the snake, it tells me this is a northern and not a midland. So a midland is just a subspecies of a northern water snake. But for most people, they don't really care about all that. Now, this snake, if we look at him, I'm sorry, fella. I'm glad that, I don't care if you bite me, but please don't musk on me. It really stinks. It really stinks. Now, I don't want it to bite me either. Water snakes have pretty big teeth as far as snakes go, because all these guys really eat are fish and frogs and toads, which are all slippery, so those big teeth help them to hold on to them. And so people, that's another reason they mistake these for copperheads. They kill them, they open up the mouth, and then they see, oh, look at the big teeth. Oh, it's fangs. No, it's not fangs. They just have big teeth. The other thing with this snake is when it does bite, they have some anticoagulants in their saliva. So basically, it bleeds a lot. Their bite is not horrible. I would rather get bit by this water snake, as unpleasant as it is, than a squirrel or a mouse or a rat or a house cat. A house cat's bite is 100 times worse than this snake, okay? So the worst thing about the snake's bite is, boom, it happens fast. That's the worst thing about the snake's bite, okay? And it scares you. So it's unpleasant for them to musk on you, and it's unpleasant for them to bite you, but they are completely harmless. Now, on our website, when we identify snakes, one thing we do is we send people to our website, and there it doesn't just say at the heading northern water snake or midland water snake. It simply says common water snake. And the reason for that is, unless you really know what you're looking for, it can be difficult for most people to tell the difference in a northern or a midland water snake. The differences are basically this. Do you see these dark bands across this snake's back? So on this northern water snake, the dark part of the bands up top is wider than the lighter part of the bands. On a midland water snake, the lighter part of the bands up top is wider than the dark bands. Are you confused yet? Okay. And then there's some differences with the pattern on the belly scales. But other than that, and then, you know, how many of these bands are on this snake versus a midland water snake. So usually those three things are kind of what we have to look at. And the range, which obviously in this case is not very important, but those things are what we look at to determine, do we have a northern water snake versus a midland water snake? So, you know, the range maps are great to have, and there's been a lot of study and a lot of dedication put into those to make those range maps, but they're not foolproof. And me catching this snake outside of its range according to the map proves that. Now, when you're looking at the side of this snake's head, those stripes along his lips, his labial scales, are not very prominent on this one. A lot of water snakes, you can see it a lot better than on this snake. You can see it some, but it may not be the one thing that really stands out to you if you were to encounter this northern water snake. Now, one thing about this water snake I want you to notice, it does have bands that go across his body, okay? And those bands are narrow on the bottom, and the bands are wide on the top. With copperheads, it's opposite. Also, these bands, they don't go all the way down the body. Once you get about right here, just about halfway or so, those bands break up and become blotches. So they're not bands that go around the whole body of the snake. But a copperhead, for the most part, usually his bands or his markings are going to go from the back of his head all the way down to his tail. So let's take a look right now at a copperhead. Now, I have a lot of copperheads, but this particular one is my favorite. This copperhead does have a name. I don't name all my snakes, but I did name this snake. And this snake's name is Andrew, okay? Yes, Andrew the copperhead. But you see, he's got bands all the way down his body. And his bands don't break up here. They kind of continue all the way down to his tail down here. And like I was showing you on the water snake, the bands on the water snake are wide at the top and narrow at the bottom, but the bands on a copperhead are narrow at the top and wide on the bottom. So that's one thing. And a lot of people will tell you it looks like Hershey Kisses. The little shapes, it looks just like Hershey Kiss chocolate candy. And once you see that, you kind of can never look at a copperhead the same way again, okay? But here's the thing. Not every copperhead has that. That is for snakes here in the Southeast. You know, your broad-banded copperheads, which don't live here in the Southeast, they don't really have the Hershey Kiss shapes. They have bands, but those bands don't look like Hershey Kisses when viewed from the side. But if you're in the Southeast, you don't have to worry about that because those snakes, those copperheads don't live here. See, this snake can look different from another copperhead that you see in your yard. So just because that's how this copperhead looks doesn't mean the other one looks the same way. Some copperheads have been born with no Hershey Kisses. They've actually got stripes that run down their body. And there have been some copperheads that have been found with no pattern at all, no stripes, no Hershey Kisses. And then there's been a few others that have been found with spots, okay? No Hershey Kisses, no stripes, but spots. But those are really rare. So for the most part, when you see a Copperhead, usually it's going to have Hershey Kisses and somewhere on his body, okay? But usually all over, just like this one does. But this is a really, really beautiful, beautiful snake. I mean, how can you, whether you like snakes or not, that is a pretty snake. Now you notice I'm using a hook. I've had this snake for a long time. It is not aggressive. It acts like just a normal Copperhead, but I'm not going to take any chances with him free handling this thing because 35 years, I've never been bit. I want to keep it that way, okay? So we're going to put this Copperhead up, and I want to show you another Copperhead that's going to look a little bit different than this one. So here is another Copperhead. Now this Copperhead looks pretty similar to the other Copperhead, but one difference in this one is, if you look, he's got the Hershey Kiss pattern, but in between there, he's got these spots all the way down his body. In between each Hershey Kiss, he's got a spot. And I've seen this a lot in Copperheads. Some of them have it, some of them don't. So Copperheads can be variable in color. And just like people, some of our skin tones are darker or lighter. That's the same thing with snakes. There can be a darker color, maybe a little bit lighter color, and have different shades and tints. So not every snake is going to look exactly like the one that you look up on the internet. They can all look a little bit different. So you don't need to look at just one thing. You want to look at the overall snake. You know, the shape of the head. That misleads a lot of people, like I said, because a lot of harmless snakes can have a triangular shaped head. Now the pupils, everybody talks about the pupils of a snake and how they have those elliptical cat-like pupils for the venomous snakes. The problem with that is, in lower light, those elliptical cat-like pupils can dilate and become round so they can see better. So even a Copperhead, sometimes you can find with round pupils. Now another difference with Copperheads, and you kind of have to be pretty close to see this one, is right there in front of his eye. See the hole? That's his pit. They have pits. That's what they're called, pit vipers. And in front of the pit is his nose, his nostril. Non-venomous water snakes have the nostrils, but not the pits. Now, one more very important thing about Copperheads and water snakes. Do Copperheads swim? Yes, all snakes are excellent swimmers, including Copperheads. But Copperheads are not water snakes. That doesn't mean that you can't find a Copperhead in or near the water. It just means that if you're finding a Copperhead that's living next to a creek in the rocks or in the water all the time, that's probably not a Copperhead. These are not water snakes. They'll go to water, they'll cross water from time to time, but living along the edges and the banks and going in and out of the water, that is not the snake's behavior. So a lot of people see non-venomous water snakes and they mistake them for Copperheads. Now, if we're going to talk about the differences with Copperheads and harmless water snakes, we have to mention rattlesnakes. What do I mean? Check this out. When this snake gets scared, the Copperhead, it shakes its tail really, really fast, kind of like a rattlesnake. Of course, it doesn't have a rattle, but if it's hiding in some dry leaves or even grass, it's shaking it so fast that it makes a sound, and people mistake them for rattlesnakes. And that, shaking their tail, that's just something rattlesnakes, Copperheads, cottonmouth king snakes, rat snakes, black racers, coach whips, and a lot more snakes, they do that when they're scared, except for water snakes. Water snakes are one of the snakes that when they're nervous, they don't shake their tail like Copperheads and other snakes do. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to Daryl Millwood in South Carolina. He ordered a t-shirt and liked it so much, and what we do, he decided to send us a very generous donation. Daryl, we greatly appreciate that. That helps us continue all the work we're doing here. One more thing I want to show you. I'm going to sit you right here. You crawl over there. Let me see this. Here's one of the shirts that we have. These are our SnakesAreUs TV shirts, and the logo Southeastern Reptile Rescues on the back. And right now we just added youth sizes. So we have everything from youth small, medium large, all the way up to adult 3X. So these are $20 with free shipping, and a lot of that goes to support the work we're doing here at Southeastern Reptile Rescue. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and please make sure you subscribe.